Grandpa, please read the story of the Great Ring to me again.
Not this trap again, boy. Today, I'm going to tell you a new story. People say that there is another continent behind the vast ocean to the west. When rain falls on the eastern part of that continent, the water will flow into an ocean called the Atlantic Ocean. When rain falls on the western part of this continent, the water flows into another ocean, the Pacific Ocean. The border that separates these two parts they call the Continental Divide. The border leads through the wilderness in the middle of the continent where no civilized person has ever set their foot. But still, legend has it that a trail goes along the border. But any fool who would dare to hike this trail would have to start in the blazing heat of the desert in the south, where the bones of many adventurers bleach in the sun. But if they survive the desert, they would only end up in a mountain range that is so high that the icy summits are never out of the clouds. The slightest misstep will lead to a fall into the abyss. North of these mountains lies yet another desert, not less dangerous than the one in the south, as it is filled with poisonous snakes and prong-horned beasts. The desert is followed by the endless woods of the north, where a wanderer never knows if he's going into the right direction, and the fearsome predators that live here are always looking for their next meal. Some of the few who have entered these woods and were lucky enough to return and tell the tale report that they found an entrance to the underworld, a deep hole with stinking steam coming out of it. But if an adventurer masters all these challenges, they can reach a lake in the mountains further north that lies blue as a sapphire in a magical valley. That lake, they say, is where the rainbow ends and eternal happiness is waiting for everyone who finishes the perilous journey along the Continental Divide.
What a cool story, Grandpa. Someday I want to hike on that trail.
Nonsense, boy. You will work in the car factory like your father and I have before you. And now shut up and go to sleep.
That night I dreamt how I would hike this trail and find the Sapphire Lake at its end. And up to this day I can still hear the call of the Continental Divide. Okay, this may or may not have been how I decided to hike the Continental Divide Trail. But fact is, it's April and it's the first of 7 months of an unpaid vacation that I took this year in order to hike the Continental Divide Trail. For me, it's actually the first time to hike one of the big trails, and I thought one video will not do it justice, so I'm making a little series. And in this video, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the trail, just in case you didn't know it yet. As the name suggests, the trail follows the Continental Divide within the United States. The Continental Divide is the watershed between the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. The distance between the southern and the northern terminus of the trail is about 1,200 miles as the intercontinental ballistic missile flies. But with all the curves along the divide, the actual trail is about 3,100 miles or 5,000 kilometers long. However, there are opportunities for shortcuts that hikers can take if they run out of time. According to these numbers from the Continental Divide Trail Association, about 2/3 of the hikers choose to hike northbound. I decided to do that as well because I think that this variant offers an easier start as elevation changes are relatively mild for the first weeks in New Mexico. It usually takes 5 to 6 months to hike the entire trail, but I'm not in my 20s anymore and the base weight of my pack is at 41 pounds or 18.7 kilos, so I expect to be a bit slower than the average. My plan is to start the trail on April the 18th, which means my ETA at the northern terminus is mid-October plus minus a month or so. Okay, let's take a look at the trail. It starts in New Mexico at the Mexican border in the Chihuahuan Desert. It then winds its way to the north following a chain of mellow hills where the scenery will gradually get more green. At the northern end of New Mexico it reaches the Rocky Mountains where there is usually some snow left at this time of the year. Luckily 2025 seems to be a low snow year. In Colorado the trail follows the crest of the Rocky Mountains, which can reach up to 4,400 meters or 14,400 feet. But the mountains are snow-free during the summer. Water should now be a bit more abundant, but the area is still a lot drier than Central Europe. Close to Twin Lakes, which is roughly halfway into Colorado, I want to summit Mount Albert, which is the highest peak in Colorado, but is a little bit off trail. A few days later I should reach Gray's Peak, which is the official high point of the CDT and also over 14,000 feet high. After Grand Lake up here, the highest mountains are done and it should get easier towards the Wyoming border. Once in Wyoming, we have to face the Great Divide Basin, which is a rather flat wasteland where thunderstorms are not uncommon and water is scarce again. Here I may have to drink some water from the infamous cow ponds, which could get disgusting. The basin ends at the feet of the Wind River Range, which is probably the section I'm looking forward to the most. Here my plan is to do an alternate which they call the Wind River High Route. It cuts straight through the middle of the mountains while the official trail stays mostly in the foothills. North of the winds I will still not return to the official trail, but instead take the Teton Crest alternate, which goes through the famous Teton National Park further to the west and reunites with the red line up in Yellowstone National Park. In Yellowstone the trail passes the famous Old Faithful Glacier and other places of geological activity. From here the trail follows the Idaho-Montana border for a while, where resupply locations are scarce. I estimate that it will be early September when I reach this area. The trail now turns back to the east towards the city of Butte, Montana, but I think I will try an alternate here as well. If I have enough time, I want to go further up north along the Bitterroot Wilderness and Bitterroot River Valley to reach the city of Missoula. Here I will turn to the east and reach the Bob Marshall Wilderness and reunite with the official trail. Then the trail heads further up north through Glacier National Park, where it reaches the Canadian border at Waterton Lake. But enough theory for now. Let's get this shit show started.
I think I will be slow. I will take it slow. I want to take it slow in the beginning. And then, in 3 days or so I will catch the train from Frankfurt to Dallas and then to Tucson and take a train to Lordsburg, where a shuttle bus should bring me to the southern terminus at Crazy Cook Monument of the Continental Divide Trail. And I think it will be a great adventure and I hope I last to the end. I see you on the trail. Bye bye.
A few days later, I reached Tucson, Arizona, where I got supplies for the first section of the trail.
Farewell to your bricks and mortar, farewell to your archie lies, farewell to your gangways and your gangplanks.
I'm currently in my hotel room in Tucson, so I managed to get into the country yesterday in Dallas. They did not take away my battery cells. I have 3 of those. And I need them to put them in my custom power bank, which is specialized for solar charging, and it can also measure the energy, the total energy that I pick up over the day, which is cool. That thing looks a little bit like a pipe bomb, so I was afraid they would remove it, but I did not bring that on the carry-on luggage. So I had that in my backpack, but only the cells in my carry-on, but no problems there, so that's good. The next day I lined up to board the train to Lordsburg. Here I met the first other CDT hiker. His name was Mulligan, and I would be seeing more of him throughout the trail.
He said this morning, well he said, well Pat, hello. If you didn't get them Blaggards out, I'm afraid you'll have to go. So I asked him for my wages, he said kindly go away. Then I told him straight that we'd emigrate to the shores of Botany Bay. Farewell to your bricks and mortar, farewell to your dirty lies. Farewell to your gangways and your gangplanks, to hell with your overtime. And the good ship Ragamuffin, she's lying on the quay. When I take old Pat, put a shovel on his back.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. My body is still on European time, so I woke up at 2 a.m. I'm taking my last dump right now for the next half year, and in 2 hours I will enter the shuttle bus.
And there's plenty there for digging, or so I have been told. And if not, I'll go back to me trade. 100 bricks I'll lay. Well, I'm telling you straight, we're gonna emigrate to the shores of Botany Bay.
Early in the morning of April the 18th, I left the motel room and walked over to the meeting point for the shuttle. Things were getting serious now, and the hike was about to start. But that is a story for the first episode.
Farewell to your bricks and mortar.